These historic photographs will truly change how you view the past. Tar and feathering, a medieval punishment, often left victims in need of extensive medical care. The last queen consort of Mongolia was executed during Stalin's Great Purge in 1938. Before the discovery of penicillin in 1923, syphilis caused devastating physical effects. In Damascus around 1905, a blind Muslim named Muhammad carried his paralyzed Christian dwarf friend, Samir. Gino Franchini tried desperately to meet the 57-inch requirement to become a fireman, but missed the mark by just over an inch. An X-ray technician's hand was severely damaged in 1941 due to years of repeated exposure to radiation in London. Dr. Fukushi Masaichi, born in 1878, became known for curating the only collection of tattoos preserved from the deceased. A simple repainting was done on the Custom House clock in Boston during 1956. A mother embraced her son in 1976 after he managed to escape from a North Korean prison camp. The German guillotine executioner Franz Xaver prepared for the beheading of Matthias Cavalabert. Female fighter Chen Ben-ha, only 24 years old, smiled moments before her execution in 1902. Behind the scenes of Nosferatu in 1922, actor Max Schreck appeared just as chilling off-camera. The island of St. Kilda in the Outer Hebrides, inhabited since ancient times, was evacuated in 1930 after its people had lived there for centuries. Catherine Stinson made history in 1918 by becoming the first female pilot authorized to carry U.S. mail, flying from Calgary. A massive yew hedge planted in 1720 in England became the tallest in the world. The largest Roman mosaic ever discovered, located inside a hotel in Turkey, could still be visited in 1962. The very first underwater photograph was taken by a diver in 1899. Life in Hooverville during the Great Depression painted a grim picture for countless families. Around 1936, more than 3,000 construction workers posed together for a photo while working on the Chase Manhattan Bank. A samurai from the Satsuma domain in Japan, photographed in 1964, carried a longbow. The artistry and humor carved into Saint Foy Abbey in France date back to around 1050. Edward Llewellyn once landed the largest sea bass ever recorded, weighing a staggering 425 pounds. A riverboat along the Rhine carried barrels of whiskey, captured in a 1957 photograph. An ancient Mayan zoomorphic stone sculpture dating from the late 1800s stood as a symbol of their creativity. A coal miner in Germany was photographed in 1958, exhausted after his shift and waiting for his turn in the showers. Alina Malahor joined the Slovenian People's Liberation Movement in 1941 at just 16 years old. By 17, she had already been wounded twice fighting Nazi occupation forces. Strict swimwear regulations were on display in 1925 when Smokey Buchanan of the West Palm Beach Police measured Betty Fringle's swimsuit. During blackout conditions in wartime, a farmer painted white stripes on her cow to make it more visible at night. A German immigrant family with 8 children was photographed at Ellis Island in 1904, symbolizing hope for a brighter future. A German soldier returned home in 1956 after years in Soviet captivity. He had been taken to war when his son was only 1 year old and came back after a decade of separation. Beach volleyball was already being played in Venice Beach, California, as early as June 1934. Aircraft tester George Arid narrowly survived a crash in 1962 when he was ejected from his plane. He landed in a nursery, broke both legs, but lived. A noodle delivery man in Tokyo balanced large boxes of soba noodles in 1935, showing incredible skill and strength. During the Soviet invasion of Prague in 1968, a photographer secretly captured tanks entering the city. The smuggled photo revealed the brutality of the event. The Hindenburg disaster of 1937 ended the era of airships when the vessel exploded in flames. In 1936, August Landmesser famously refused to perform the Nazi salute because he had married a Jewish woman, despite facing severe persecution. Mask mandates during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic were enforced, including by a streetcar conductor in Seattle. Gustave Eiffel was photographed in 1889 exploring the Eiffel Tower with a friend, the very structure he had designed. Actress Brigitte Bardot was pictured enjoying the sunshine on a Cannes beach in 1953. Jenny Clay proudly posed with her Austin Mini in London during the 1970s. At Arlington National Cemetery in 1951, World War II veterans were photographed honoring their fallen comrades. Joseph Stalin received word about the German advance on Kiev in August 1941. A woman in England tested a gas attack-resistant stroller in 1938, a reflection of the public's fear of chemical warfare. A massive dust storm swept across Texas in 1935 during the Dust Bowl, devastating rural communities. Explorers uncovered an ancient Mayan statue in Honduras in 1885, highlighting the richness of their civilization's heritage. A dog handler in 1915 read a message delivered by a messenger dog during World War I. Jewish prisoners were liberated from a death train in 1945, marking the end of their unimaginable suffering. Italian inventor Davide Cislaghi tested his experimental one-wheeled motorcycle in France in 1933. In the 1940s, a worker was photographed carving a face into Mount Rushmore, showcasing the monument's immense scale. A canteen worker at Disneyland was photographed serving visitors during the park's early days. An Austrian boy in 1946 received a new pair of shoes in the aftermath of World War II, a moment of relief after hardship. In 1940, a young boy chased after his father as he marched off to fight in World War II in Canada. Women in Ireland in 1890 still used spinning wheels to make thread by hand. A woman showed off her flexibility by performing the limbo in Los Angeles around 1964. Actress Susan Peters was photographed cycling in California in 1942. A German civilian stood in Berlin in June 1945, staring at a poster of Stalin after the fall of Nazi Germany. Men on Easter Island were photographed in 1922, observing the massive Moai statues. A rat catcher worked in Liverpool's sewers during the early 20th century, playing a vital role in controlling disease. A couple proudly posed with their BMW Isetta microcar, a symbol of post-war innovation and economic recovery. In 1938, a pearl diver improvised by using a car's gas tank as a diving helmet in the Mississippi River. Teenagers of the 1950s were often photographed capturing the spirit of a new, vibrant generation. In England in 1936, children cared for a dog whose owner had recently passed away. A llama appeared in the heart of New York City's Times Square in 1957, attracting amused onlookers. The massive face of the Statue of Liberty was photographed in 1885 before it was assembled onto the monument. The British airship R-33 was prepared for its maiden flight in 1919. A horse-drawn carriage was seen passing through a giant sequoia tree in California in 1879. Crowds gathered around another massive sequoia tree in California in 1917, marveling at its size. The Woodstock Music Festival in August 1969 drew a massive crowd, symbolizing the counterculture movement of the era. Italian troops transported both a soldier and a gun dog through the Alps during wartime. In 1948, the Shafu family posed with a "For Sale" sign in Chicago, reflecting post-war economic struggles. Concorde jets were photographed lined up at Heathrow Airport in 1986, representing the peak of supersonic travel. During the Korean War in 1951, Chinese soldiers were photographed pleading for their lives before a South Korean soldier. Chester E. McDuffie tested an armored diving suit in 1914, setting a record for deep-sea exploration. Soviet peasants listened to a radio for the very first time in 1928, experiencing modern communication technology. A man proudly held a punt gun, a massive shotgun once used for duck hunting, reflecting old hunting practices. In the Netherlands in 1888, the graves of a Catholic woman and her Protestant husband were separated by a wall, showing religious divides. Elvis Presley was drafted into the U.S. Army in 1958, pausing his music career. A group of Native Americans was photographed in 1907, preserving a glimpse of their heritage. In 1915, a wounded British soldier received medical care from a Red Cross dog on the battlefield. Jesse Owens made history in 1936 by winning the 200-meter race at the Berlin Olympics, defying Nazi ideology. Manhattan streets around 1917 showed horse-drawn carriages and streetcars sharing the road. Arnold Schwarzenegger was photographed during his prime years as a bodybuilder in the 1960s. Marilyn Monroe was seen relaxing on a beach in the 1950s, capturing her iconic glamour off-screen. Child workers in Philadelphia went on strike in 1902, demanding improved working conditions. Painters working on the Brooklyn Bridge in 1914 were photographed hanging precariously from its cables. During a coronation party in England in 1953, a child was pictured practicing social distancing. A U.S. Navy airship searched for submarines during World War II in June 1943. An invitation to the launch of the Titanic in 1911 was preserved, marking a historic moment before the tragedy. A waiter served customers in a Parisian cafe in 1910, reflecting everyday life in France at the time. Hillside houses overlooked the smoke from steel mills in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1949. Albert Einstein was photographed as a professor in 1944, captured by Lucien Aigner. Midtown and Lower Manhattan were photographed in 1955, showcasing New York City's skyline. Westminster Bridge in London was captured in 1903, offering a view of the bustling city. Einstein was also photographed wearing fuzzy slippers, showing his eccentric side. Sheep were herded along the streets of London in the 1910s, blending rural traditions with urban life. Drive-in restaurants became popular in Los Angeles during the 1920s. A lemonade and soda cellar in Naples, Italy, was photographed in 1949. An evicted sharecropper family stayed in a temporary camp in Butler County, Missouri in 1939 during the economic hardships. The famous McDonald's drive-in located on Eden Card in Hollywood opened in 1935. A steam engine passed over a highway bridge in Detroit in 1950, symbolizing the intersection of old and new technology. Students listened to music during an art class in 1957, blending creativity with culture. Members of a New York City police precinct were photographed in 1915 distributing toys to underprivileged children. Women in Iceland in 1928 washed their linens in natural hot springs using geothermal resources. The Ford Model N Roadster of 1906 marked an important step in automobile history. The very first Chevrolet Corvette was built in 1953, priced at $3,490. The Chicago Federal Building, constructed in 1905, was demolished in 1965 to make way for a generic skyscraper. The Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County featured cast-iron book alcoves as early as 1874. A motorhome built on an Atterbury truck chassis was photographed in San Francisco around 1919. Norwich City in the UK received its very first computer for the Treasury in 1967. San Francisco's Post and Montgomery streets were photographed after the devastating earthquake and fire of 1906. A Philips in-car record player from the 1950s represented cutting-edge technology for the time. Notre Dame was photographed around 1900 by Roger Violet, preserving the cathedral's majesty. The Bugatti Type 41 Royale Coupe Napoleon, built in 1927, was pictured with its chauffeur and family. Construction of the Eiffel Tower began in 1887, with photographs showing its progress by 1889. Workmen were captured on the gantry of Tower Bridge in London around 1890. Julia Roberts, Steven Spielberg, and Robin Williams were photographed together on the set of Hook in 1991. Tall ships were tied up at North Quay, Drogheda, Ireland, during the late 19th century. In front of Guy Webb's motorcycle shop in Minneapolis, two men posed on a Harley-Davidson with a sidecar. A New York City moving day in 1938 showed the bustling atmosphere of the city. Pablo Picasso's first self-portrait at age 15, 1896, was later contrasted with his last at age 90, 1972, after creating over 50,000 works of art. Chicago's famous elevator garage was photographed in 1936, showcasing early innovations in parking solutions. The Minier family homestead in Unityville, Pennsylvania, was photographed in the spring of 1886 or 1887. Sweden's first morning of driving on the right side of the road in 1967 caused confusion but marked a historic change. More construction of the Eiffel Tower in July 1888 revealed the progress of the iconic structure. Coopers were at work in Germany during the early 1900s, practicing the ancient craft of barrel making.